Do we have any public comment? Seeing none. Mr. Ricasa will not be with us this evening. He had a work appointment, and Miss Benson is still ill, so she will not be with us this evening. Do we have any public comments? Okay, moving right along. Stone Farm is at 6:35, so if you're ready, Anthony, we can, are you here for Stone Farm? Yeah, because she said it was either going to be you or Jamie.
Yeah.
Never mind, Stephen. Everybody, I don't know if you all remember Anthony from Whitnam and Bingham?
Thank you.
He's the engineer that will be presenting this evening.
Thanks a lot.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good, welcome back. We haven't seen you in a little bit. How come?
It's just the way the rotation goes. I haven't had many Bloomberg projects lately.
Yeah, they're all fighting for Lunenburg, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it, I
Place
know.
to go, place to go.
So what can we do for you today, Anthony?
So again, I'm Anthony Cleaves with Whitman and Bingham. What you have before you is, as I believe that the typical process when we have a modification of buildings on an approved project. So this is the Stone Farm Estates project off of Mass Ave, which I'm sure you're familiar with. I think we had a building change at the end of the cul-de-sac not too long ago. So similar fashion, what we're looking to do here, what you have in the hatched orange is how the building was proposed and approved back in 2004. It was a 4-unit building. What we're looking to do is separate the 4-unit building into two 2-unit buildings. With the change in the building code has made multi-unit buildings a little more expensive to build, so in order to kind of help make the cost work for the project, we're looking to change that 4-unit building, like I said, into two units. In basically the same location. I don't know if you're how familiar you are with the project, but the road infrastructure is in. Many of the buildings you see lightly around the area I've colored in are all existing that were put in years ago. I believe also that this was forwarded off to Ross for their comment. I don't know if that was passed along to you, but I got an email this afternoon that Jesse Johnson had been able to take a look at that, so I'm not sure if you had gotten that yet, but he had said there appears to be a modest increase in impervious surface with the proposed changes, as there is. However, I don't think it would impact the drainage infrastructure in a noticeable way. My opinion is that it is an insubstantial modification request. I'm not sure if you have that. If you do,
I do. I have it right here. Yeah, in my
so,
little packet.
we, Jesse's right on what we were believing. Yes, it is an increase in impervious surface. It's about a 3,000 square foot increase when you take into account the little wider driveways and the footprint of the buildings, just about 3,000 square feet, but the stormwater system should be able to handle that. So, again, minor change that would need the board's blessing, I guess, to move forward.
Yeah, and I do have that he wrote to Marjorie today, February 10th, and said, there appears to be a modest increase in impervious surface with the proposed changes. However, I don't think it would have an impact on the drainage infrastructure in any way. So, that's that. Anything else, anything kind of cut and dry?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Does anybody from the board have questions for Anthony on the change?
I'm not sure what benefit this does for the town. Isn't the planning board's directive for the benefit of the town? No offense, sir, but the cost, the increased cost is fine, but and that's too bad that everybody's experiencing that. But I don't understand why we get admired with all these changes because of the cost, and there's no additional benefit to the town. They're not even addressing the increased 3,000 plus or minus square feet of impervious, which is a considerable amount of runoff when you consider it, and then the drainage facilities and structures that are already under the purview of the Lunenburg DPW are taxed, and Jack is telling the DPW director is telling us that he's not going to be able to handle in additional maintenance, that new things are going to start failing due to lack of maintenance. This is definitely going to increase the runoff from paved surfaces. I don't know. I haven't seen the engineer's review. I don't know what it looked like before. I'm uncomfortable personally making a yay or nay decision after having seen this for 10 minutes.
If I,
Go ahead,
Ken,
Anthony, yes,
it's a private development, it's not gonna be taken over by the town of Lunenburg. The stormwater system
Okay.
is in.
Good.
Yes, you'll have a slight increase in runoff, but it is not gonna tax the system anymore. It wouldn't require any more maintenance. It's the same maintenance. You know, you'd still have to, clean your catch basins out and clean your detention basin out, but again, this is
Like you
it's
said,
a private
pri-
development.
Privately maintained. Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
So it's not gonna pose any more of a burden onto the town of Lunenburg.
So my concern was kind of moot then.
Yeah, again, but you weren't,
Good,
you
good.
shouldn't have known that.
You've answered my question.
So, just wanted to,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
all right, any other comments from the board? They've come in front of us before with these. They've changed a couple from a two-family to a one-family, because over 55, they
I
prefer,
think that was White's Woods, wasn't it?
no, they've come in front of us as well.
Yeah, I forget what the,
Because you had 2 floors, and then it was that we found a lot of people were preferring the 1 floor.
I'm not sure if that was this one or not. I know we did one at the end, at the cul-de-sac, at the very end of the
Yeah.
road. I don't know if you're familiar, on the right. It was either a fourplex went to a triplex, I think is what it was.
Yep.
Something like that. So we have been before.
Yes.
And even before that, they may have come over the years. I guess it was approved in 2004, so it's been a little while as this has been
Yeah.
built out.
Nathan?
Um,
Damon, go ahead.
Well, my only concern, I guess, is this back corner of the building on Dover Road that's only 8 feet off the road.
Yep.
Myself, I'm not worried about that too much. I don't mind buildings being close to the road, but as far as what our bylaws are, really doesn't comply with that, right?
If I can, again, it's a private road.
Okay.
It's not a town road, so it didn't need to meet setbacks of a 40-foot
Yeah,
required front yard setback and side setbacks and so on like that. It was a planned residential development, private, so none of the buildings meet the front yard setback. Again, it's not a town road.
yep.
Do you know offhand what the width of Dover Road is? I don't see
I believe it's the standard 50-foot width, I believe.
The right
which
of way?
was typical what the town would always require us, even on these private developments, is that,
The fire
we-
truck
we
still has to get
create-
down the area.
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Similar to the Emerald Place at Lake Whalum,
Mm-hmm.
same kind of thing.
All right.
You good?
I don't really have a
Nathan?
big problem with it, no.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the change. Thanks, Matt and Damon, for bringing those questions up. Anthony, if you could, there's just a question I have for you, which is, not a, I'm okay with the change. I just to improve my understanding of the impacts of the evolving building code. What building code changes specifically had the
biggest one that is coming up a lot now is fire protection. From what I understand, I'm not sure what edition it was, but when you start to go to 3-unit, I believe, or more, it required fire protection, regardless of square footage. Before, I believe it was also a square footage requirement. Once you got to a certain square footage threshold, then you needed the sprinkler system. So that's the biggest one that adds cost to these types of projects nowadays.
That's
So-
interesting. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so the two-family doesn't trigger that.
This is the second modification we've had for this reason. So
That
that's
was my
interesting.
Oh, is it
on the
similar,
other
you've
one.
had that as well?
Yeah.
White's.
The other one was a 55, and it was an elderly. It was more important to have fire protection. This one, they're right across the street from the fire station practically, so, it's taking it at their own risk, I guess.
And I don't have any questions. So I accept a motion to accept the change, modification.
Motion to accept the proposed modification to the Stone Farm project.
From a
Second.
fourplex to a duplex. We have a second. Damon, thank you. All in favor, starting with Matthew?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming in. It was nice seeing you again, Anthony.
And that just, I'm gonna stay here for Elmwood Road too, in case you have
Sure.
any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Minutes, if we can go through the minutes that were emailed to us all prior to the meeting.
Which one is he staying for, Joanne?
Elmwood,
Elmwood. Oh, okay, gotcha. Where's that on our agenda here?
I don't know if I see it on. I didn't even look. Highfield Forest definitive subdivision 50 Elmwood, continued discussion.
Do we want to fast forward maybe and get him, I mean, since he's like one of the few people here, take it out of order?
Sure, absolutely, we could do that.
That's fine, I appreciate it, whatever you want is fine.
No, that's fine, we can jump right into that. So we're gonna go into the definitive subdivision, 50 Elmwood Road, continued discussion. So, a couple things I have, Jack Rodquins did respond to the basins, and that, he has concerns there with the maintenance, and Marjorie scanned that all to you, so you got the copy of Jack's letter. Chief Sully's response to the road length waiver received this morning, and there's a copy in here for you on that. He had no problems with extending the driveway, but he did send a letter that I can give all of you. There you go, Nathan. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an extra.
Oh, Toby's copy, thank you. Do you have a copy of the fire chief's letter, Anthony? Did you get that?
The email, yep.
Yeah, the email?
Yep.
All right.
Did Conservation Commission meet further on this one? Do you have any information from that?
I believe conservation,
They didn't hold their last meeting.
yeah, due to the weather. And Sharon Jordan actually emailed me on that. Do you have anything new to report, Anthony, or are you just here for questions?
Here for questions, and I can,
Come on up.
like Mr. Allison just mentioned, we were scheduled to be before the Conservation Commission last meeting, but due to the weather, that had to be rescheduled. Received the comments from the fire department and DPW. Nothing there that I don't think is an issue, and again, if you want to talk about any of that, I'm here to discuss that. I'm not sure how in tune you were with some of the Conservation Commission proceedings, but one of the outstanding items, the main outstanding item, why they couldn't really move forward, was we had to file with the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program due to mapped wildlife in the area. Since the first meeting with them, we've gotten back correspondence from Natural Heritage that says the project is not an issue with taking of any habitat. So that was at the last meeting, the real outstanding item with the commission. So with that now, I can't speak for them, but I would expect that we should be able to close out that process at the next meeting.
Okay, and I did get the email from Sharon Jordan on Conservation that you're meeting with them again on the 19th?
Yes, I believe
February
that's it.
19th is when they're going to meet
Yeah.
to talk about Elmwood. So she said she would email us after that meeting as well. So that was the update from Conservation on Elmwood. She had emailed me because you were supposed to go,
Yeah.
and they were going to let us know their outcome. for
Because we were
tonight.
hoping to continue to move forward with the planning department,
Yeah.
planning board. But do we have to wait for the Conservation Commission approval before the planning board can move forward? Is that what?
No, we just wanted to weigh in
Okay.
because they had some concerns in regards to the wildlife, all the trees that were coming out. At the last meeting, we talked about, which I wasn't aware of, the gravel permit. When you take out X amount of gravel, you have to have the Board of Selectmen go in front of the Board of Selectmen and get a gravel permit.
Oh.
So I don't know if they've done that as of yet. So there was those things that came up at the last meeting.
Because I don't know if you had, I brought a copy of the Natural Heritage letter. If you guys hadn't gotten it, I can.
I don't know if Marjorie, it's not in my packet.
It may have not have been, just so you have it.
Is this a copy for Marjorie? Okay, I'll give that to her. Perfect.
Basically saying you're all set, which is, like I said, probably the biggest piece that the Conservation Commission.
Was waiting for?
They can't act on a project without that bit of information. So now that we have that,
Okay,
we should be able to move forward with them.
all right. And looking at, there's some waivers that you're looking for.
Yeah,
You request a waiver for the subdivision of a tree plan due to the fact of the subdivision that has less than 10 lots. And I believe, my concern on that was the frontage, that they were taking all the trees out in the front, and that we would want those filled in, as,
Along Elmwood,
yes.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, along Elmwood, the going in, they were clearing that all out. And then we had that talk, Damon?
Then there was along the new internal road as well, I think.
Yes.
Well, they had planted the new internal road the second time we saw it, and I
Yep.
thought that they were thinking that that was what we had intended, but I think our intent was along Elmwood,
Elmwood.
not their proposed road,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think it was
And I
both.
don't think it'd be unreasonable, I don't know about how much the cut and fill is happening along Elmwood, but you might be able to. Yeah, you might be able to retain some of the trees that are existing there, because realistically, the topography shouldn't change that much within the immediate location, Elmwood Road,
Okay,
really.
one of the difficulties of the site is actually somewhat elevated from Elmwood Road. So to come in with a gently graded road, not coming steep down into Elmwood, we're really cutting into that.
Immediately at the road, you start grading in.
Yeah, to get to have the adequate vertical curves and everything coming off of the road, kind of, so we're not coming in really steep, we're gonna have to cut in that. So there probably won't be much vegetation retained in there. But yeah, because I think, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I believe that's what was some of the concern, where we didn't have the ability to save a lot of the existing trees that you're gonna wanna see trees put back.
put back.
And I remember seeing trees along the new road.
As well.
Were you adding them along Elmwood too?
Yeah, I mean, we can, and that's, we can add street trees. Again, the concern we would have about putting street trees on Elmwood Road is we're gonna want them away from the intersection to not impede
Pier
sight distance.
Right, yeah,
so-
meaning the site distance.
Exactly,
But
so you
still,
can see,
right, still have,
we can put those, sure,
Yeah.
if that's what the board like us to do, sure.
I know I would, I can't speak for my peers.
Yeah, I would.
I would. Yeah, that's
So-
a beautiful road. They're all beautiful roads.
So on the first waiver, we request a waiver from the subdivision of a tree plan due to the fact that the subdivision has less than 10 lots. I would say no, that we want,
Have a plan submitted that shows the
Yes.
trees.
that we know that the trees are gonna be there. Does the board agree with that they'd like to
I
see?
think a tree plan is a separate plan.
An existing tree
Correct.
plan or a
Right.
proposed tree plan?
It would be a proposed tree
A
plan.
proposed tree plan.
I would think that they could suffice by putting them on the site plan rather than having an entirely separate plan, but adequate plantings along the trees. I don't know, I mean, would it be a huge expense to add an additional sheet to your plan set?
No,
versus-
but I see what you're saying. I
Right.
think the intent, from what I understand, is to show proposed trees on the plan set in some fashion so the board can see, okay, yeah, we're endorsing a plan with X amount of trees proposed.
Exactly.
Okay, so
And
whether
then I
it's-
don't know if it's not approving the waiver or approving the waiver, but I want trees.
I believe the waiver itself is probably more geared to the tree plan,
Right,
but it helps facilitate this discussion on trees altogether
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that street trees are being put in, which is what the board would like to see happen, correct? Right?
yes.
So if you're okay, we'll put them in the plan set in some fashion, whether it's a separate tree plan or on the site plan, because the site plan, it's not very busy right now, so you can probably see them pretty well.
Yeah.
But in some fashion, put them on a plan so you can approve a plan with trees shown on them.
Do we have requirements for a landscape plan?
I think
It's
that's
a
what the
tree plan.
It's a tree plan over 10 lots. And where there are only 9, that's
Right.
why they're asking for the waivers.
Many of these waivers are based on the Lunenburg standard, less than 10 lots, typical waivers that are granted.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what they said up front. These are all usually waived for less than 10. Okay, so are we now waiving the first one, and he's gonna put it on the site plan, is that?
I suppose we could waive the requirement conditional upon them being on the site plan, couldn't we?
Okay.
Right?
I'm fine with
That's,
that.
that's pretty much
As
what we've
long as
come
there's
to.
trees.
Yeah, I'm fine with that proposal.
Okay, so can someone
I
make a
would, I would make a
motion?
motion that we approve that
Waiver.
waiver on condition of having being on the site plan.
Okay,
Just one comment before
Sure.
we approve the waivers. I am kind of, I mean, at least for the street length one, I guess I'd prefer to do, I feel bad about inconveniencing the owner and his team. I would like to get the final feedback from Concom before.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I agree.
And so I guess if we're gonna have to wait to come, I mean, the big one is
Oh, okay.
the length requirement, so maybe, we can go over them tonight and tentatively do it.
right, well, and there's some that we can do tonight, and some that we can say we're waiting for conservation.
Okay.
But we can at least give them the waiver on the tree plan with
Yeah.
the, so they can move forward and start adding them on the plan.
Okay,
The next one is the tubular summary we can do. The environmental impact, that we might want to wait for conservation, but at least they could start to move the sidewalks.
All right,
Y-
well, let's
y-
finish with the one that Matt started.
Okay, do I have a
would
second?
Second his motion,
So we are requesting a waiver, we are approving the waiver.
conditionally upon the fact the trees will be shown on the site plan,
Okay,
street trees.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next one, we request a waiver from the submission of a tubular summary due to the fact that the subdivision has less than 10 lots.
what?
What kind of summary?
Yeah, I don't know what,
Tabular summary.
Yeah,
it's-
yeah,
it's
what
a-
is that? I
It's
don't-
another form that's in the subdivision control law, going through a summary of all of the roads, the lengths, and just breaking down all the information. It's more geared for a larger subdivision. We have multiple roads to kind of, it's a tabular breakdown of that. So again, typically, it's a typical waiver that is asked for on lots that are, on subdivisions that are small, one road, to go through that exercise.
All that information would be on the plans currently, wouldn't it?
Yep.
So,
Again, it's a typical, it's right in the subdivision control in the back of the book, I believe, the list of typical waivers that are granted for 10 lots, less than 10 lot subdivisions, and that's one of them.
So you took this right out of our book?
Yep.
Yep.
Do we have any feedback from Jesse on this? The thing is, I don't know enough about what's in this tabular summary. So for example, like if it was, road lengths, yes, I might be fine with that.
Yep.
If it had to do with cut and fill material for this particular project, I'm not sure I'd want to waive that because I think that's something that a number of stakeholders want to have an understanding of.
I think a cut and fill analysis is a separate issue, is it not? Are you performing a cut and fill analysis?
The contractor will be doing one for that. We can provide that,
Well, I think you need
we
to
can
do
provide
one-
that data, but it's not going to impact how we're developing the site. I mean, it's basically, the material is, it's an export. We're exporting as it's been discussed, I think, from day one. It's an export, and Jesse had brought that up.
Well, I think
And-
because of the cut and fill permit required, I mean, because of the removal permit required, you're gonna need to do one. I think.
Yeah, I would think if we do need to do that permit,
I think the selectmen confirmed that you will.
they did,
At the
because I
last
know that
meeting.
was one of the questions that was
I'm pretty sure it was.
discussed, because usually as part of a development, you don't typically also get an earth removal permit as well.
I think Jesse put the number out, half a million cubic yards,
No, it was not that much.
400,000 or 500,000, I thought.
No, I don't think it was that much. I don't think that's quite a lot.
Yeah, he had no issues with the only two in the waivers he had was the road that he talked about. He just wanted us to check the road with the fire department,
Okay, and we did that.
which is what we did. And then he had, on the landscape, the tree, waving the tree, was that they do the frontage as we requested.
Okay, so we covered that.
Yeah.
But he had no problem with all the other
He
waivers.
didn't even mention the section 3438, the tubular,
Tabular.
tabular. Yeah, that was the first one. We still feel street trees would be beneficial to the project and not incur a significant cost to the applicant.
What's the date? Just a real quick check.
Yeah, no, go ahead, don't.
Date on this
We're
one
partners.
is Jan 22, date on this one is November 21. Okay, so Jesse didn't call it out, I'm
Yeah.
fine with it.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I would accept the waiver.
I'd make the motion to grant that waiver for the tabular requirement.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now, we request a waiver for the submission of an environmental impact statement due to the fact the subdivision has less than 10 lots. I think that we put on hold till we hear back from Conservation after the February 19th
Yeah,
meeting.
that's fine. Again, the typical environmental impact statement, the items that are usually brought up in that is traffic and impact on schools. Those are two of the big items, and that's why it's usually waived for a 10-lot subdivision. Traffic is usually very minimal, and you're not going to add a lot of impact to the schools. Also, you look at taxes and impact on that. So usually the Conservation Commission part of it, I don't believe there's much to the environmental impact statement.
Yeah,
We're not going to do one.
It's more
for a
physical
Conservation
environment,
Commission.
not natural environment.
We go to the
okay.
Conservation Commission to get their approval, so that's that part of it. So up to the board, obviously, but I think you could be comfortable in granting that waiver now as well, because the Conservation Commission, they have complete control of their jurisdiction. We can't do anything without their approval.
Which is the watershed.
Which is the, wetlands
Right.
in the river that's back there too.
Yeah.
So I think you could, if you wanted to, you could feel comfortable in granting that waiver at this time. I don't believe the commission's, the process with them will impact that.
Did Jesse have a comment on that one?
No, he did not.
Again, same thing as a standard waiver for lots less than 10.
Yeah, out of the 5 waivers, the two that Jesse had pointed out was the tree and the request for the longer road.
So
and
it's not that he
was
said
to-
he was fine with them, he just didn't mention it.
Right. He didn't mention them. So it's not that he said, yeah, go ahead, give it to him, or no, don't. So. But did you want to wait?
I would prefer to
Yeah,
wait.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not gonna, all right, the next one is the request a waiver for the 600-foot road, which I want to wait for conservation on because there were two things. First, we want to make sure the biggest fire truck is able to go around that cul-de-sac,
And it can.
which they were, Sully was concerned about in that letter. He brought that
Yeah,
up.
and
it
it's-
can?
Yeah, it's the cul-de-sac is designed to the subdivision standards.
Okay.
So it can get around that. If it can't get around that cul-de-sac, then
We need to revise.
can't-
Because the fire
You have to
chief,
change a lot of roads.
and he's really the one with the road. The fire chief is the one with the road extension.
Yeah.
And then you saw in his letter about the water. The water district, what's the plan with the water district?
so
With
I-
the two hydrants?
Yep, so I'm not sure if they've gotten the plans yet from, I talked to Fran at the Water District, and he said that, there's no issue with getting water, but as usually happens, he's more of making sure the construction is good too, so we can go over the plans. He may want a hydrant slid one way or another, but usually very minor stuff with them. On such a subdivision like this, we have one main going up into the subdivision. I talked to him briefly this morning. He didn't seem to have any issues, but I don't think he's had a set of plans to look at yet.
Right.
So I'll get that to him, so
Okay.
he can have that, but there should be no issue
Okay.
with that.
And then on the cul-de-sac, if I'm correct, Anthony, they want to somehow, because there's land behind there, that they're working with the developer to get an easement to be able to go onto the conservation land. And
I believe that was discussed. I'm not sure where that is.
Right,
That'll probably
and-
get discussed further at the
with the
Conservation
conservation,
Commission.
and I think within the cul-de-sac is where they would park, that there would have been two parking spots. So I would want to wait for conservation on that. And then I don't have a problem doing a waiver tonight for the sidewalks. That's,
So was the waiver they're not doing sidewalks?
they're requesting a waiver from the installation of sidewalks due to the fact that the subdivision has less than 10 lots.
But if I can on that one, that waiver may not have actually needed to be asked for. If you're looking at Jesse's response, the subdivision control law says major streets need sidewalks, minor streets do not. This technically classifies as a minor street, so I think we technically may not have had to have asked for that waiver, but we did it anyways.
Okay.
So I think you get Jesse's responses. He brought it up,
And there are no existing sidewalks on Elmwood,
no.
so there's nothing to tie into.
And it's funny, because I'm a component of sidewalks, but then Rob's Hill Road is a new development that came, and there's people walking it all day long, because it's got a couple of hills, so it's a very, very residential walked area, and there's not a sidewalk there. And I think you even said you've walked up Rob's Hill
Well, I walk in the conservation land.
on conservation land, that's abuts that, right?
It probably does, although I think Rob's Hill Road is actually really far. I usually don't get onto that. I don't usually end up there for some reason, but
Oh, all right. I thought you said you did, because I was like, wow, Nathan comes all the way over there.
yeah. I usually park in Burridge and then walk
Walk up,
and then get
okay.
back in my car. If I get lost, I usually end up in downtown Shirley.
At the Phoenix or the Piccolino?
Yeah, exactly. I used to have to call for emergency pickup.
Well, I'm 5 minutes from there, so call me.
Okay.
I'm right there. All right, so like I said, I would accept a waiver for the sidewalks this evening. I don't think we need to wait on conservation for that, but I'll let my
Motion
peers-
to waive the sidewalks on this Elmwood development.
Second,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye. All right, Anthony, so on the waivers, we only have two outstanding that we'll get from conservation, which is the request for the environmental impact and the 650 to 750. So at least we moved a little bit today. We got 3 out of the 5 done.
yeah, just one more question about
Sure.
the trees. When you show them on the plan, how far away from the road do you generally show them? Is that,
Well, typically, the street trees will be in the right-of-way.
okay,
So there would be, probably, I know there's a typical setback in the typical cross-section of subdivision control. I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be 5 to 10 feet or so.
okay.
Where there aren't sidewalks, that makes a big difference too. Typically, if there are sidewalks, we don't want those trees right on top of the sidewalks, because over time, the
Right.
roots will start to heave the sidewalks, and you'll be fixing the sidewalks, so.
Because I understand the safety of a roadway, but myself, if you drive anywhere around town, there's trees practically growing in the road. So the closer to the road they are to me is more with the character of the town. So that's just my own personal feeling on it.
And you're looking for trees, not only, just to clarify, not only on Elmwood, but up the subdivision road as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, as many as possible.
Well, I think they put the ones on the subdivision, on the new road, I think they lined it with trees since the first time we saw it. And I think that might be what the thought was, what we were asking for. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it looks good with the plantings that are shown. Sure.
Yeah. And that's as many trees as you can possibly put is fantastic.
Preserve is better.
Yes.
New one's okay.
Yeah, the most they can do. All right, anything else on Stone Farm on Elmwood, I'm sorry, for Anthony?
Well, one question for Anthony, and then just one question for topic for the board, just
Sure.
to consider. So, and just out of curiosity, Anthony, is electric distribution going to be underground or?
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
yeah, which is typical requirement nowadays is to go underground. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Anthony?
One comment, a question on the stormwater treatment units, the 2 of them proposed.
Yep.
Is there any potential to cut down to 1? I mean,
But they go to 2 different spots.
okay,
Yeah, they're,
I get you.
one is up here, stormwater before the basin, and there's another one down here to pick up some of the water that goes out to the roadway. So, just
No.
can't get the water all into one spot,
Now,
unfortunately.
I understand there are some low-impact development avenues to go rather than the units themselves. Had that been looked into?
Yeah, I mean, you can do water quality swales,
Right.
things like that. The difficulty with water quality swales is they need to be very flat, need to have very low velocity.
Right.
So it's tough to treat a lot of water with that. And with vegetated filter strip, same thing. They need to be very lengthy and very flat. So it's difficult to fit those in on subdivision roads like this. Some of the low-impact development techniques you see, like the country drainage, we have swales on the side of the road, but unless you're very flat, very wide, you're not gonna get a lot of treatment on that. And then it's also a maintenance thing too. You're actually now maintaining a long swale. And so it can be just as much of a maintenance headache as having one unit to go clean out.
But it's not 4 times a year.
No, it would be all the time. It would be constantly. It's, if there's snow in there, you can have problems with snow sand that goes right into the swales. So it's
Sure.
and you're not sucking those units out 4 times a year. You open the cover and looking in them. If there's not a lot of sediment in there, you don't need to vac it out. Just like catch basins, same thing. We recommend catch basins to be inspected, twice or 4 times a year. But many times, depending upon how much sanding you're doing, you don't need to clean them for years. It's just making sure you take a look and seeing if you do need to clean them. That's the
Right, they
thing.
need to be looked at, you're right.
Yeah, that's the key.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one comment.
Sure.
The owner, Mr. Ewing brought up a good point, was that they were talking about getting access from the cul-de-sac to the Proctor Park, while Proctor Park has existed for 20, 30, 40 years, with the access to Elmwood that has been not kept up. So I see his point as a valid point, where it's kind of strange for the town to have had that access to an area for so long and have not kept it up or made it usable, and to now, when the neighbor is developing his property, to require access and parking even on his property.
Well, and I can't answer that 100%, but I believe what Sharon Jordan had said, and I don't want to be misquoted, but the access that they had, there was parking issue where there is no parking. There was a problem with the access, and that's why people weren't utilizing it, or they would already had the Boy Scouts in there because the Boy Scouts are looking for things to do, but there was an issue with the current access to Proctor Park.
It hadn't been maintained. was my
And I understand that, but we also usually talk about park space in our subdivisions and that kind of nature. But even if it's not for the town and there's parking spaces there, wouldn't it be nice, and I think a selling point for these people, just to be
It
able
would
to
be
walk up
nice.
the
I don't
trail?
disagree. I just wanted to bring that up as, a valid point on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, Rob's Hill, there's cars there, they did like a 3-car parking, and there's always cars there, and people are walking that conservation trail
Yeah.
that the Boy Scouts did. It was actually one of the boys that live on Sunset Lane that went in and cleared that all out. So, and Sharon said the Boy Scouts contact them frequently, so she's dying to get in there and get it cleared out and make it an enjoyable walking path for everybody. So, all right, any other comments? You said you had something, Nathan?
Yeah, so I guess, so I read Jack's letter, and it's good to get the feedback from Jack on that. I guess this is just more something for the board than for Anthony. It seems like,
We're on Elmwood.
We just started, okay,
Yeah, we are on Elmwood.
thank you. Oh, hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good. Wondering how soon you get to it.
Yeah,
so I guess maybe this is something we should talk about some point with Jack and with Carrie, I think would be the two stakeholders I can think of. But when developments come up, it seems like frequently we get feedback pretty regularly from Jack that just about any new maintenance is hard for the town to do. Which is, I'd like to understand a little better. I mean, we bring a subdivision online, that means more tax revenue. Some of that tax revenue presumably goes to, either DPW or somebody who's contracted to do this maintenance.
Presumably.
So this is why I say Carrie and Jack, because I don't think the current trajectory is really sustainable, because it sounds like what we're currently assuming in our, building and subdivision regulations, which is in the tradition of, the town takes this on, it's not working anymore. We get a subdivision plan, it has, fairly legitimate drainage proposal, and town says, can't do it. So what I'd like to understand with, what the plan is with Carrie and Jack is, what's goal, what long-term, like, what's our goal with the budget? Do we have a budgetary goal to deal with this? Or do we have a budgetary goal of not ever being able to deal with this, in which case maybe we need to update our subdivision regs to, in the future, include some requirements around long-term maintenance plan, what do they call those, residence agreements or whatever, homeowners association or whatever, so that we can be assured that there is a viable fiscally sound proposal for some stakeholder to maintain the drainage in question.
We've got a lot of public streets that have drainage problems. We shouldn't have to be creating new ones for small groups of people that are paid for by everybody.
Well, it's okay, they pay taxes, so I mean, they're.
Right, that's where, the developer buys land and decides they're gonna create, and they meet the town bylaws. It's the same thing when Emerald Place came in, the schools, well, we don't know if we're gonna be able to handle the students, that's gonna be an impact on the police department, the fire department, we don't know if we financially can afford that. That's really not the developer's issue, they pay their taxes, they've met the bylaws, it's the town, when they collect that tax revenue, to disperse that money appropriately, for the
I think what
schools.
Nathan is saying is there a hole in our bylaw? that we
Right,
need to-
Yes.
that we could, right.
That's what I
One
heard.
way or the other, if the new reality is the town, the town can't meet that, can't provide that public service in all circumstances, we need to clearly define upfront so people seeking to do development in the town or whatever so we all have a clear idea of, what the likely scenario is going to be and impacts and scenario, is the town going to pick it up or not? Have it be a little more clear cut as opposed to right now. I mean, I don't know what, with this one, I mean, the plan seems like they're doing a good diligent job with the plan, but, where do we go with this? I mean, if Jack says, there's no way I can clean this out, this is something, I don't, as we go forward, I'd like to understand a little deeper. So what's the proposed solution to this? Does Jack have a proposed solution? It's,
Right. No, I agree. It's,
Sorry, but I don't- what are we discussing? What are we trying to decide on?
oh, no, we're just having conversation.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Not specifically about your project,
Yeah,
but
no, we're just having conversation on the septics, the drainage.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, fine, thank you. I just
Oh,
didn't.
it's
Oh, no, not, you came in the middle, absolutely. Because it's kind of like for me, when the state, they change all these things like Title V. And now there's poor people that are going to sell their home and they have to spend $20,000 to put in a new septic system to be able to do that. And how do you keep up with that? So I don't know if there's other communities that do have, because I look at a homeowners association, Flat Hill, or, and what if that homeowner association goes bankrupt? Now, who picks up the drainage responsibility or the maintenance of that?
Nobody.
Huh?
Nobody.
Well-
It's not a public road, right? It's not gonna affect the public. It's not gonna affect the townspeople in general.
well, there can be environmental impacts if the.
Right, now.
Well, there could be, right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, they're gonna start to flood there, so
Yeah.
it's,
So maybe Joanne, do you think you could arrange for us to have a meeting to discuss this? I don't think this obviously
Yes,
shouldn't.
be the
shouldn't-
forum.
This
Yeah.
isn't to hold up this project
Exactly,
or
yeah.
impact this one. This is just something we've been seeing on.
going forward,
Well,
yeah,
How about
absolutely.
member issues? We pick it up later tonight. Member
Well, I
issues.
think you're saying add it as an action item to maybe have Jack come talk to us and see what are there options?
There's three dimensions we need information on that we don't have amongst us, I don't
We
think.
could, we could talk about it on number 11
I don't
tonight.
think we need to talk about it anymore without any further input.
Right,
That's the thing, we need to continue to get Jack's input, we need, town manager's input regarding, what, from her perspective, is planned, feasible, reasonable. And the third thing that Joanna just brought up is we may need to get some input from Joel to understand what kind of contractual arrangements are even an option if we were to change the bylaw, like, does homeowners association with a maintenance agreement, does that get the job done for us or something like that? So I'd be happy to talk about it more tonight. I just don't think I have enough information to do any more with it.
can
think
I
we
ask
should
you,
formalize
Anthony, just on the side,
okay.
as an engineer, as a licensed engineer, working in all different
a good idea.
communities, do you see what we're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, and not even so much with proposed projects. I think it's a struggle many municipalities have and are going to have with changing laws in the Clean Waters Act, where even towns and cities are forced to improve their own existing infrastructure that have been there for years, to improve the water quality. And it's a problem that everyone has, because no one has money.
Right,
And, you don't want to raise taxes and whatnot, but, it takes it takes effort, resources to maintain any infrastructure. And so yeah, I mean, it's a problem that many people are facing. And
But is there such a way to put it back on the developer to say, okay, you're building the subdivision, you need to be responsible for the drainage and come and clean them 4 times a year, have a homeowner just.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that too much. I mean, it's tough to do. It's, developer will come in, build it, and then basically turns the road over to the town.
town, right.
So to have a long-term commitment with a developer, you don't see that, homeowner, like with, homeowners associations, condominium complexes, something like that, sure.
Right.
It's a much
It's a
easier mechanism,
self-contained.
because you're also tying with that many other things, many other components of a, condominium association, like Stone Farm, for example, there's something there where it's more than just stormwater. It's, plowing the roads, snow removal, all that is built into it. So separate from that, it's a tough hurdle that many people are trying to, I think some municipalities are trying to create funds and create, a stormwater fund that it's just finding ways to fund that, whether it's through fees maybe, or, have a separate stormwater permit, things like that I've heard tossed around, but I haven't come across much that we've had to do it yet. But absolutely, it's a discussion that's there and will continue to be there.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much for your time.
Any other questions, comments on Elmwood? All right, so we are done.
For me,
Have a
yes.
great
Unless the
night.
Ewens
Thanks,
maybe
you.
have
Yeah, now, because you
Are
were,
we still in a?
I can
Okay.
explain it to them.
all
Thank
right,
you.
all right,
Thank you very much.
thank you. And if you have any questions, we're here. There'll be a public comment if you want to come up, absolutely. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed it. I was-
No, not at all. All right, so now back to minutes. If you guys are all set with Elmwood. Okay,
Matt mentioned maybe just before we get off of this, Matt had a good point, which is maybe we should just formulate just some very rough questions for us to just sort of formalize what the goals are for the meeting we want to arrange,
sure.
and who the participants are. So I'll do you mind if I take a crack at this one, Matt?
Not at all?
All right, so I think that in relation to stormwater, the overall question is, do we need to modify our subdivision regulations or bylaws in order to provide a more workable solution for stormwater for the town and for developers in the town?
Okay.
And the stakeholders, we need to talk to Jack from DPW to understand if what we're seeing, make sure we're interpreting correctly his feedback. What does he believe, based on his understanding of the funding of DPW, what policy does he think they'll be able to support in terms of expanding services to new developments? The other person, it's a similar thing, but more from the town's finances end of it. Get Carrie's perspective on that same issue. Are they on the same page? That kind of thing. And then I think, if possible, Joel or someone from Koppelman, just to help us better understand what are legal options in terms of different ways. If we needed to modify that arrangement, we could. Whether as Anthony alluded to, is it something do we need something more like condominium agreements in our subdivision regulations, or could homeowners associations somehow handle this? Are there other types of maintenance agreements that could potentially, if we need another way, give us another way to handle it? And then he also mentioned there may be other options. Maybe Carrie has ideas about this, like a stormwater fund or whatever. But I think those are the people we need to talk to understand what they're thinking and what the realm of possibility is. Because assuming, that's it.
Okay,
Is that anything?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking, I've heard of granting waivers in lieu of payment to a specific fund, specifically for sidewalks. If there was a subdivision that wanted to request a waiver, then it could be granted conditional upon payment to a sidewalk fund that was not necessarily used in that subdivision. Maybe it was used to connect the sidewalk from the town center to actually where the crosswalk goes.
I don't know. I understand what you're saying. It feels like extortion to me, though.
right, yeah. Well, see, and that's where,
I know towns do it
out of
all the
all
time,
of this,
but
is
to me-
legally, developers have rights as well.
Sure.
And it's their land, and they have rights as owners of that land. to do that, and their taxes pay for some entitlements of that. So that's where
Well, that's fine, but
Think we
they
need-
build a road and they build the drainage and then they give it to the town, so then it becomes the town's. It's not a gift, it's not something, a luxury item that the town is looking forward to gaining. It's a cost, it's a pain, it's something that requires maintenance regularly and it has to be upkept.
right.
At the same time, the people are paying taxes just like everyone else. It's easy to say it's the new guy's fault for drumming up costs, but there's everyone else in town who's still drumming up costs. And just because they've been there doesn't mean they're not part of it.
Right, well, because it's the schools. When we built Emerald Place, the schools aren't going to be able to take, there's not going to be room in the classrooms, there's not going to be, how are we going to school these children? We can't. Well, and it's not the developer's responsibility to go build a new school for the kids living in that subdivision. It's kind of the same thing. It's, you build a development and now there's a new road and the town has to, due to taxes, plow that road unless it's a private entity like Stone Farm, Flat Hill Orchards, that they plow their own.
I'm certainly not looking to extort anybody.
Right.
I'm looking to let the developers save money and at the same time contribute a fraction of that saved money to the betterment of the town. How is that extortion?
I understand what you're saying, but it's like, oh, we'll let you get off on this if you do this. I know it's a practice. Towns do it all the time, but to me, it's just, that's how it feels to me. So I'm not a big fan of that, is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, and I think if we start at least at the surface where Nathan had said, and have a conversation with Jack, a conversation with Kerry and Joel to kind of see what avenues we can go down, I think that'll help all of us go to the next step. Because right now, we're all making a lot of assumptions
Yes,
on
exactly.
what if.
Exactly.
So I think we'll be able to have more specific data.
Yeah, wherever we go, we just want to get out of the state of things happening by accident, without a plan.
Or lack of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So maybe we could
Sped through.
see if they can come to one of our meetings. We'll have Marjorie work with setting up that with the three of them.
Okay, awesome.
All
Sorry
right?
to take so much time.
No,
but
not at all.
That'll be great.
Hey, it's how things get done. All right, can we go back to minutes?
Sure. Of course.
Okay. These were all emailed to us. We should have read them. The first set I have is for January 27th.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 27th for the regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the
Information, yep.
information meeting from January 27th minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Damon.
Aye.
Any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 She doesn't have the lines on top. All right, the next set we have is the January 6th.
Motion to approve the meeting, for the minutes from the
Public hearing.
public hearing on January 6th.
The special town article warrant? That was-
Yes,
yep.
the special town article warrant.
Perfect.
Second.
Thank you, Damon. Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, perfect. And the last set we have is
December 8th.
the December 8th,
Regular meeting?
no.
Oh, site visit to the Lane property.
This was the site visit to the Lane property?
Yes, yes. I don't think you were, so motion to, I think the three of us were all. there.
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes for the site visit to the Lane property on 300 Holman Street
On December 8th.
on December 8th.
2 lines of them?
Second.
Any comments?
I thought it was a great walk.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It was a
Perfect.
great walk, yeah. It's a beautiful property.
And are you going to send those back down to me?
Sure.
And then we have committee reports. Matthew, MJTC.
We have not met since the last planning meeting.
Okay. MRPC, we did meet, and we also got emailed that we received the DLTA. We were approved for two things, actually, the town of Lunenburg. We were approved to do more focus on the village overlay, and they're looking at analysis of a regional animal control. So I don't know if the Lunenburg Animal Control, looking at making that a regional.
Great, that's exciting.
So we were approved for both of those. So that came out of the MRPC meeting I went to, and they did send Kerry a letter congratulating the town of Lunenburg for getting both of those.
Nice.
So that's up and working. School Building Committee, Nathan, what do we got going on there?
I think I have a meeting this week. No new news since my last report.
Okay. Building reuse, Damon.
Haven't heard anything. Still waiting direction from the selectmen, I guess.
Okay. Capital Plan and Green, Marion's not here. Agricultural Commission, Matthew.
Again, no meeting since our last planning meeting?
All right, we are moving right along, people. Highfield Village, update from Sewer Commission. We have a memo scanned to the board members, so you all saw that from Barbara on the planning board. They did submit their plan, as they said. The sewer department had a couple questions, so Weston and Sampson, so they brought it back to them, and they hope to have, they're going in front of the Sewer Commission on February 11th. So that was just an update there, so hopefully they'll be all set on the February 11th meeting. But Barbara did send him a letter in writing to confirm what Highfield had told us at that last meeting.
Great.
So that's all set. Force Corp. 305 Leominster Shirley Road Endorsement of Development Plan Review. All right, so we have the draft approval scanned to the board members. Approval has been edited as a result of comments from Jesse, and an email was sent to the applicant requesting a revised plan showing the site distance.
Yes, site distance.
So he has not gotten that back to us as of yet, so that's where that's at. So Marjorie did email him reinforcing that we were looking for that from the last meeting.
Okay.
All right. Elmwood, we already did. I don't know if he had any questions. White Woods, Mass Ave, there was no report. Emerald Place, there's no new reports. Whitetail Crossing, it's still in review with Jesse. 651 Chase Road, solar update of site work. Now, what happened there? Mike sent us a letter, and she scanned, Marjorie, I shouldn't say she, Marjorie scanned the response from Mike Savageau, and apparently there's about 30 square feet that the panels are encroaching on. Mike didn't feel it was an issue, and that was it. Please be advised that I have reviewed, did you all read the letter? Do I have to read it?
Yeah, I think I read
Okay. So I'm fine with that if the building zoning officer doesn't have any problems with it. It's not encroaching on neighbor's property. It's not impacting anybody, and he doesn't see that there's an issue whatsoever. I don't have any problem with that, but they were just,
Whose land does the solar panel encroach upon?
I don't know if it's Twin City Baptist or if it's land they bought.
Setback it's encroaching on, not someone's
Oh, it's
land.
a
Right, the setback.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it at least as far back as it is tall?
It's
It's like a 200-foot setback, isn't it, or something?
Yes.
it's a
Oh,
big
I guess it
Yeah,
probably
it's
is.
200
Can you
feet.
just read the letter, just, I think
I
it'd be
can.
good for people that, yeah.
This is dated February 4th from Mike Savageau, the zoning official, to Marion Benson. Please be advised that I have reviewed the engineered design of the solar field for the Chase Road Solar Project. It has been noted that there are a few solar panels that will project within the setback requirement of 200 feet. The projections are a small proportion of only a few of the panels. The base structures for the panels are beyond the setback requirement. Therefore, I have determined that this is very minor encroachment of a proportion of about 7 or so out of the 10,000 panels. So out of the 10,000, 7 of them in the solar field is insignificant and only adds up to less than 30 square feet collectively out of the 150,000 square foot of the total solar field. In addition, Section 5.3.2.1 of the Lunenburg Protected Bylaw allows this encroachment as similar projections not used for human occupancy. If you have any questions in regard to this correspondence, please feel free to contact me at your convenience. Respectfully, Michael Savageau.
So it sounds like the support structure is within the setback. The panel encroaches on the airspace of the setback. It sounds, yeah, if the building officials, it sounds relatively minor.
It does, but it was a contentious point with a lot of the citizens, I believe, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
Not at all. Yeah, it was. But again, I don't think that they would,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, if.
200 feet, it's encroaching on 7.
30 square feet, you know, it's like a 6x5
tables,
area.
yeah.
It's like, yeah.
So it's more like bending than breaking the rules, I guess. I honestly, I agree. With the 200-foot setback, it seems ridiculous to make a big deal about it, but,
Well, and I don't think they're bending rules because they told us.
okay, no, the
You know what I
building
mean?
official.
And the building official is saying, we've done this
Building
before.
official, sure.
It's not inhabiting a neighbor. And
That's fine.
so I think they're breaking the rules when they don't tell you. They're like, oh. So,
Okay.
all right, moving on. Annual town meeting, okay, the creation of, am I all done there? Yeah, the creation of the medical marijuana treatment center bylaws. So, I don't know if you've all had a chance to go through the two and kind of just either highlight or send to Marjorie, whichever you prefer, what items you would like her to start to put in the draft, and then we could kind of fine comb one document that we're working off of. I have. And also, if you want to have any dialogue, if we were going to do it by special permit, right of use.
Yeah, I think I mean, before I would like for us to discuss some of those high-level issues.
Okay. What are your thoughts? I'm dying for conversation.
Dying for conversation. I don't mind starting, but I also don't mind if you want to start with Matthew and work our way down this way.
I'm a proponent for the special permit. It sounds to me like it allows the largest flexibility for a citizen or a townsperson for potential. And it allows, depending on how the special permit is allowed or written, would depend on how protective it was, but with a special permit, it's flexible, whereas the district is not necessarily as. It's just my thought on that. I mean, with these hardship growers, it's gonna be in the residential areas regardless. It's just not gonna be one of these massive, large factory type things.
Okay. Damon, do you have any thoughts on?
I would say special permit sounds good to me. As far as, I've gone through all those handouts, where you're asking us to highlight or pick out lines, and it's just, the lot itself is huge and has so many requirements, and then you're adding these other huge pile of requirements on it too. It's like, where do you stop? So I guess the only things that are important to me, I guess, besides adhering to the law itself, is gonna be that the police and the fire get final review of their security
Safety.
systems.
Yeah, the safety aspect.
And other than that, the only things I'm concerned about are where are we gonna zone it, is my big thing.
Which would fall under our special permit.
Yeah, are we gonna pick a zone, or is it just special permit for the whole town? Or are we gonna make a special zone?
Well, that's what's up to debate, because we could do a medical zoning. We could do a medical zoning, we could do it by special permit. And we're on you, Nathan.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just trying to record some of the stuff you guys talked about, because I think there's just like several things that we can sort of make decisions about separately. Obviously, we want to think about them, how they interact together, but one thing is just where do we want to allow these things to be permitted? I guess with any of these questions, I feel like we may have to deal with, at least consider the possibility of two different sets of regulations, because the law allows for sort of a retail use as well as a growing kind of production use, and they can be in separate sites, and I'm not sure they would need to be, we may be able to have different regulation of those sites. Like there may be districts where we might think it's appropriate to have the growing but not the retailing, and, vice versa. Okay, so let's just recap what we talked about here. I know Marjorie's going to take this down, but I need to get it straight in my head too. Like what? So where in town is one question, and the other one was method of zoning.
Zoning.
And the choices there were add a use to an existing district, add an overlay, or in theory, you could create an entirely new type of district. I don't know that that's that realistic, or that's a possibility. Okay. Where in town, method of zoning. Then there was, is it special permit? By right? Or, the other one's sort of a flavor of by right, is by right with site plan review requirement.
Can I comment on that?
Sure. Yes, sir.
By right, I think you're gonna have to include the hardship growers as by right pretty much wherever they live, because it's their home and they have, if they've got the license,
Can we help you? Oh, let's see. I didn't see it from my glasses.
it's coming down to the differentiation between like a treatment center versus a person.
Well, we can't control the hardship growers, can we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, let's.
So we're not zoning them at all. That's just a thing that exists. We don't have any control over that.
Okay.
Right? Am I correct?
Is that just one of those things it just gets?
Let's talk about it separately, because there is technically some things like Joanne's talked about working with the Board of Selectmen. Let's, it's basically a separate conversation. It'd be an entirely different process, but good point.
But I do want to comment on the dispense and cultivate, right? To grow it and sell it versus treatment and consumption, to actually be consuming the product. Those are two pretty different things,
Well,
in
if
my
I remember
opinion.
correctly from the actual law, they weren't supposed to consume it on the premises at all, right?
There's only one permissible case of consuming it, and that's like, I think, if someone is demonstrating the use of the delivery equipment.
So
or something.
how do they call it a treatment center then?
It's not they're not, I don't know that they're called treatment centers. I think they're called
Dispensaries.
they're called, there's a whole acronym for them, which escapes me at the moment, but, all right, so I think, let me just check my notes here, because I read this stuff and I took some notes, but I think those three, the where in town, what type of zoning, and what type of permitting requirements are like the three, if we answer those three big questions, I think we're making good progress.
Absolutely.
And that kind of takes, those questions start to take us into the why. I guess the other issue I have is, in terms of our goals for putting these things together, do we want to go, we've seen a couple different styles here in the excellent examples that you've provided us with, Joanne.
Yeah.
One style is basically repeat everything that's in the state law and put it in the town's bylaws. And the other style is go light, just indicate the things that are special to what the town's doing, and then reference the state bylaws or assume that they're going to apply.
Yes.
And I would, just to chime in for I would myself assume go light and rely heavily on the law, because I know they're gonna change it. I'm sure they're gonna change it, and if we have to update it every time they do, it's gonna be conflicts constantly.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. I mean, that I hear what you're saying, and that's my gut reaction as well. I think the thing we have to be aware of is if we do that and the state law changes, it means, let's say the state law changes in a way that would be optional for us to adopt. If we have particular, unless maybe there's a way we can reference the state law as of this date, then the potential danger is then we begin inheriting the state law changes.
Are they gonna give us a
without the
choice?
I don't know. Well, I mean, that's assuming that they change it in a way that, is, optional
Usually
for
they
us.
just tell us
Yeah.
what to do and we don't have a.
I'm trying to think of an example, I don't know. I feel like maybe the solar stuff, something like that happened, where
Well, we did the state bylaw. We, took the recommendation of the state, solar.
Yeah.
Took the recommendation of the state, and then the state had an amendment that was never communicated to us. As they learned, added things, we were not educated to that update in the state.
Yeah, yes, I think something like that.
Yeah.
That's my impression of the way that process moved.
So if we, to take the state's bylaw for the medical marijuana, which is what we'll do, we just have to make sure that as these updates are coming, that we're getting them, looking at our bylaw, and either adding them or saying, no, that doesn't apply, but making sure we are updated to those changes.
Yeah, and maybe there's something we can do in the language that Joel can put in there, so we're referencing the law at a particular date, and, whatever, kind of allows us, if we're not compelled to, update, then, whatever, we can stay on that.
That's what I'd like to know, is are we gonna be compelled to just go with it? Because I don't wanna be fighting the state law.
No,
Well,
If it's
I
acceptable in the
think
state, then how,
I think the question you're asking, Damon, is the state law is what we have to take. And then if we want to add more things, as a community, we can.
yeah, I get that part, but where we're saying go light and reference the state law heavily so we're kind of just sticking, then we'd be moving with the state
Right.
rather than arguing about it all the time. I don't know.
Potentially. I mean, I think we need to dig in with Joel and see what our options are there if we go that road. And I think, like you said, we can add to it, things that when I was reading this came to my mind is, the state's got a fairly well-defined body of regulations for these, which is why I'm very attracted to that go light approach. But as a town, I think maybe is it possible for us to get a copy, for example, of the documents that go between the applicant and the state, so we understand what did they submit to the state, what did the state approve. There's a few things in the state regulations where there's sort of some escape clauses, which I think are the areas we may want to pay special attention to, because those are things we might want to call out and say, oh, by the way, state says this is optional, we say it's mandatory,
Yeah.
depending on what,
Right, that was what I was saying, is that the state has the laws, and then there's other things that we can add, change, that are optional for us.
Exactly. It's great that we're having this conversation now, because this will save whoever puts these together a lot of time. If we say, if we end up saying, oh, we don't want to copy the whole state bylaw, and they go up the whole state bylaw, this will be good for them to know in advance. Okay, great.
Well, and I think that'll help when it comes to the bylaw itself. If we have, and I've already, wrote to Marjorie, please start the draft of the medical marijuana bylaw with the state one, and then we can take 15 minutes and go through the 10 pages of the state one, yes, no, and, but that's where I'm saying, if we have a document that we're living off of,
Is it 45 pages?
probably, but a lot of it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But actually, that reminds me, I think we should all take an action item to review
Can we get the updated one?
Yeah,
We still
please.
haven't gotten that.
Yes.
the updated one for next
Yes.
meeting. It's probably online, like, we could probably search for it, but probably be nice to know we're all looking at the same one, too.
This is what, not law? Not general law? And make sure it's not a draft too, right?
Well, the last one we got was a draft, exactly. Yeah, that was exactly the problem.
I've answered my own question. The Kay Doyle lecture that we went to see was on medical marijuana treatment centers. And the verbiage in this law, medical marijuana bylaw template is medical marijuana facilities. So a treatment center is definitely not sounding the same as a dispensary. And I'm not even sure where the dispensary came up. I think it was somewhere in the middle. But there's three different things. There's a facility, there's a dispensary, and a treatment center. I mean, is this regulation supposed to cover all three, or are all three the same thing?
I don't remember reading much about treatment centers. This
Well,
is,
the whole,
Assume
the
that's where you go
K-Dog,
to get diagnosed.
the lecture that we saw at the MRPC meeting
right.
by Kate, that was all MMTC.
Oh, I think we're mainly talking about RMDs, registered marijuana dispensaries is the main one.
There's another one, okay.
All right, well, we might have to come back to this. Let's not, I would propose that we not geek into that one
problem.
too much, because I think, let's read the latest bylaws and then come back at that one. That's a good question, though, and we definitely need to get on top of that. I guess, would it, unless there's, certainly if there's other topics that folks want to talk about, we can, but I'd be curious of just having a formal discussion about these other questions, the where in town, the method of zonings, the special permit versus the other options. It sounds like we just talked about let's wrap up this repeat versus reference, I guess. I mean, I think Damon and I have voiced some opinion. Matt, do you or Joanna have an opinion about that? How to construct our bylaw, like repeat what's in the state bylaw versus reference the state and add to it what we want?
Well, I would, of course, we're going to start with the state and then reference to what our needs in Lunenburg are.
I would suggest that we make it a specific reference to a specific MGL and say that current rather than a date, because they change and.
But they're already gonna have to follow that just by opening it in the state. I don't see why we even need to say that you have to follow the Mass CMR, because they're gonna have to follow it.
To get their license.
Gives them a place to look. It gives them a place to be.
Does that make sense? I don't, again, that's where Joe would come in, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think for right now, I think we're doing good if we've just answered the question. It sounds like we're all leaning towards referencing.
To me, I just don't understand why you would repeat what's already a state law in your zoning.
Yeah, I understand. It sounds like we're all kind of on the same page about that. It's just working out the details of how do we do that and what's the best way to do that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, like, to me, if you're talking about loopholes, I mean, if you go through and find those loopholes where you want to be able to have the say,
Yep.
those would be the points where you want to
Okay.
reference it. Because we're going to end up with a giant book if we start referencing every line of the state bylaw.
Sure, absolutely. So is folks in agreement with it?
Yeah, the first bullet is the CMR, to follow the current CMR
Okay, yeah.
of the state. That's the first bullet of your
Yeah.
Okay,
bylaw.
great. Matt, are you
I'm fine, yeah.
Okay.
I would just mention that the three examples that we got of currently enacted bylaws by other towns, one is 5 pages from Dennis. The town of Maynard has 1 page, and town of Westboro has 3 pages. So I really don't think that we
That's
should.
what I would lean towards, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the one from the Hill one that Hill did was
Example
massive.
Right, no, Hill
Yeah.
wasn't the example, and I think the lawyers get paid by the word.
By the word. Okay. Okay, so I think that's great. So that's good guidance we can give.
So your first one up top is what?
Where in town do you get, if we, do folks have thoughts about that based on our conversation we've had with the Officer Marino, or Police Chief Marino? And any other thoughts you might bring to bear on that?
I would, if we're going to pick an existing zone, I mean, our conversation with the chief kind of seemed like we should maybe pick or make a zone, but if we're going to pick an existing zone, I don't think anyone wants residential, right?
No.
If we want to cross them off the list rather than just throw it. Limited business district doesn't really, by the nature of what's allowed in limited business district, I don't really think it fits what a marijuana clinic is going to fit into, because it's mostly like fitting out a home existing and very residential nature to it. So I don't, and it's also intermingled with a lot of residential, so I don't think limited business is a good place for it. Commercial business district seems plausible, because that's mostly Walmart, Route 13, those kind of areas. So to me, that might be good. And if you're talking about a growing facility, I assume an industrial complex might be okay for that if you want to stretch it out to there. But again, talking with the chief, he thought it might be better to actually pick a zone or make a zone that we'd have more control over, that he has easy access to, supervision-wise. But I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, I agree, commercial, industrial, if you're gonna go. I absolutely agree with that.
I'm not sure we're going to find any place that it seems to neatly fit. I mean, is there a benefit to the town at all? I mean, it's a nonprofit organization. They're probably not going to be taxed. There's probably not going to be any income to the town from anything like this, is there?
The only-
They have to pay taxes.
Well, not as, because I brought this up when Bob Eversole was here, and I guess my understanding what he said was they aren't paying, if they built their own building as a nonprofit and occupied it and sold it, they wouldn't be paying taxes. But if they rented a space, the owner of that building is paying the taxes. So it fills a commercial space, but for them to build a facility, I don't think we're gonna get any taxes out of it. That's my understanding of how that nonprofit works, because all these facilities are nonprofit.
So would the owner of that building be making money thereby, or would they just be?
Yeah, he's charging his rent and he's paying his property taxes on his property. So it would be another business in town, I guess, as far as filling a commercial space. But,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also a very clear sentiment. I think, I was at town meeting, and, I've heard other people speak on other occasions. So, it's been pointed out, Lunenburg residents voted at least a majority, if not a strong majority, in favor of this particular piece of legislation through the ballot initiative. And, at town meeting, there were very strong and numerically large opinions expressed about the social benefit to people who need this type of service having access to it, and that people in Lunenburg having access to it as well. So for me anyways, I think, as we plan this, that's the benefit to the town that we have to, respect and do our best to accommodate,
I agree with you. I was at the same meeting and heard that sentiment, but just as long as we understand that that's the sentiment we're acting on and not that we're creating a huge business maker for the town by allowing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a great point. Yep.
So what is your thought, Nathan?
I guess, as far as where in town, forget about, what kind of zone it is. Because of, err on the side of caution, I'd like to see it, essentially, the retail aspect of it in a commercial district. Part of me would like to actually do an overlay, which essentially would go over a subset of the commercial district within a reasonable radius, within a reasonable travel distance from the public safety complex. My concern is, and hopefully all this is just worrying too much. I mean, there's evidence, in California they've had armed robberies at these facilities. So my concern is if we have a commercial district like over on Shirley Leominster Road, and, that's not going to be a great situation if this turns out to be an issue, because I just don't, we probably don't have as large a population there. It's very far from the public safety building. It's going to be a extra burden on the police force, or just unrealistic for them to be able to respond in the way they probably want to be able to. So, I'm thinking like, if we want to do an overlay, even, restrict it to Mass Ave. I mean, if you look at our commercial districts, they almost exclusively lie on Mass Ave and 13 anyways.
Except for that one area down on Leominster Shirley.
Mr. Shirley Road.
That's
So,
way out of the way, yeah.
and I just don't want things to happen by accident as we, for good reasons, expand our commercial district, be kind of opening the door. So right now, yes, it might be that our commercial districts are almost perfect for, policing for the retail, but I guess I'd rather just have the overlay in there just for, for the time being. And that way we don't end up with, accidental consequences or whatever. For the growing aspect, what you guys have said about industrial, I think that's appropriate. For, I think agricultural districts, I mean, just about any, I think for agricultural districts, maybe putting some restrictions on, in the bylaw for abutters, certain allowance. I think in certain areas, I'd be comfortable with the growing happening in agricultural districts under certain circumstances. Personally, the reason is my main concern really is armed robbery and the injury of persons. I'm not, I mean, it's, I'm not happy if, people's property is taken or damaged or violated,
Yeah.
but, if it's, there's good stringent state bylaws controlling security on these production facilities, and, the operator's a big boy, they're gonna, or big girl or whatever, they're gonna incur the risks of operating the facility. But, as far as a public safety element is concerned, I mean, that, I think it's probably okay to put them I think we could certainly look into allowing the growing in agricultural districts. And by the way, even if we didn't want to allow it, I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear from like what Kay has written that there's already been precedent where even if we don't allow that, the state's going to make us allow it. So better to allow it and start to try to regulate it than to try to completely disallow it, I think.
Yeah, my only thought on that is, as far as what Joel said, town council, is that they're not growing it in a field. Most of these grow facilities are in a building, or else they're never going to meet the security standards, right? So they'd be building a pretty large warehouse on agricultural land.
They could, but
Yeah,
what,
because weather-wise, we just don't have the,
Yeah, that, and as far as the grow season too.
yeah, I mean, they do allow outdoor growing. I could envision it happening. And the other thing is, you look at what's happening in the New England now with growing different crops deep. Now, I'm not a marijuana botanist specialist or whatever, but they're growing all kinds of stuff in these covered greenhouses more and more. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it doesn't work out, fine. But yeah, I guess I personally would be okay supporting the growing part of it, whatever, in a variety of districts, industrial, agricultural. I think in both cases, we have to, the limits I'd like to see is,
that it has to be housed.
Well, I just don't want to see the giant warehouse or the barbed wire fence in the agricultural district, because I don't think that it meets it, is what I'm saying.
yeah, I mean, maybe there's some things we can do about, about design-related stuff we can do for that. But yeah, I mean, you already see stuff not a lot prettier. It's just, to grow flowers or kale or whatever.
I have a comment, though. Rather than specifying that it cannot be within a residential district, there are a lot of residences in business district and commercial district, and right across from the fire and police, there's residences on.
Yep.
So I mean, maybe we could specify an offset from a residential property, rather than a district.
Well, like you said, they're all intermingled. I don't think you're going to be able to get very far away from a residence in town.
Well, the state does have setbacks for this property with the butters, I think. So that's good. But so I agree with what you're saying, that we should protect residents
Yeah, because
in commercial, but I don't think we should permit. Like, I still don't want even if we had those protections, I wouldn't want the retail facility in a residential area, I guess. Is that what you're proposing?
Well, I was trying to clarify the difference between a resident district and a residence,
Right.
because there are residences outside of
talking-
residential districts.
I'm talking real on our map residential district, residence A, residence B,
Right.
not that there's houses in there. Because they're going to be sprinkled in. You can't get away from that.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm just suggesting that we have like a 100 or 200 foot offset from a residence.
That'd be a setback, not a zoning thing, I think, right?
Yeah, that'd be, what do you
Because
call
we're
that?
picking a district right now, which would be property.
Well, that could be a special permit requirement,
That could be a special permit requirement, yeah.
so.
So, Joanne, did you weigh in on this in town, which part of town issue? I think you might have already.
I did, I think it should be in the business zone. I think, you could say in a business zone excluding Leominster Shirley Road.
We have commercial business and commercial retail, right? They're two different areas on our map.
Limited business, too.
So let me float this out there, because I think we're all more or less on the same page. What if we were to restrict the retail operations to essentially, restrict the retail operations to essentially what the equivalent of our commercial district, but really just the part on Mass Ave and 13?
That makes sense to me.
The commercial, that would be, I'm just thinking of, off the top of my head, Stillman's. And they have a lot of agricultural land.
Yep.
And then across the street, they have that little place they built that Jacob's Landscaping is in. And if they wanted to convert that
Into a dispensary.
into a dispensary, because they have the fields here that.
But that's yeah, okay, but that's a farm stand, so it wouldn't be allowed there by our thing.
No, but they could build,
But you're saying you would like
Create
them to
the-
be able to do it there?
I'm sorry?
You're saying you would like someone like that to be able to do it?
No, I'm just visualizing in town, trying to perceive where these could possibly cultivate.
Cultivate or sell?
Kind of both, if you looked at the two of them together.
I'm not sure, to be clear. I want to ask Joel and get clarity, because I'm not, there's precedent regarding the state saying, no, these can go in the farms based on whatever. I don't know if that's just the growing or if that includes the retail. It may include the retail. We have to find out for sure. I guess as I'm working with you guys and we're talking about picking a spot, I'm hoping that we can control the retail, so retail won't go at a farm stand, you know what I mean?
And I want to clarify, Stillman's has not come in front of us, and
No,
it's not
no,
going
still-
up there tomorrow.
That's an example.
It was a hypothetical example, well, I don't want to be in the paper tomorrow that Stillman's is opening in front of us, because that's not the case. That was my hypothetical, I'm just trying to visualize where in town these could.
Well, if you had control over where the retail parts are going, Joanne, where would you want the retail part to go? Where do you think would be appropriate for the retail part?
For the retail part, I would see in Lunenburg, I could see 13, of course, on the other ends, not by our schools, by daycares, not by Bonjour. Those are all in the state bylaws, that they
Sure.
can't be anywhere near there. 13, same thing. I see for dispensary, and I know it's on the other side of town, but for example, Gito Global. Across from Powell's and the gas station. It's the building right next to the new gas station.
That's kind of what I was trying to avoid, I guess, by saying that it'd be far from the police station.
Right, exactly.
So that's
But-
where he was proposing an overlay on.
Right, but that's where I see someone could open up, because the office building is there, it's
Would
already built.
support one there, though?
It's leased, they're looking for tenants. So there's a sign right out there for lease, so I could see someone creating that as a,
Yeah, I mean, I think other than the fact that I'm concerned because of the nature of this business of it attracting, attention in terms of robbery. I mean, in the distance from the public safety, I'd be totally on board with you, except that one concern.
oh no, well, the Dunkin' Donuts is open 24/7, and they've had a couple robbery issues, and by the time the police have gotten there, the people were gone.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
perfect place for a robbery, too, because by the time police get there, they're down the highway already.
Right, well, and that's, the Exxon is experiencing that,
Right,
so.
and we're talking a lot more money than donuts here,
Right,
too.
no, but that, it's happening today, is
Okay,
what I'm
wow,
saying.
so that's good to know.
But I'm just looking throughout town, places that are built where people would go and do that. So, and I have no problem with 13 and Chase Road, because we
Okay.
can always
Expand it
change
later,
it,
yeah.
and we can always expand it,
Yeah,
so, and it's easier to add more than take away,
I'm with you, yep.
so.
I'm thinking like Walmart.
That's what we're saying.
Oh, okay.
That would,
Good.
Do we have our zoning map here?
No, I don't see it there, I don't know if it's just turned over.
you could go right into where Sleepy's.
The Sleepy's is still there, it's Fashion Bug, that's gone.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was looking at that today and said, wow, wouldn't a Trader Joe's be great right there?
So, okay, that's funny. So, okay, so that's good. So I think we have general agreement that some kind of overlay in the commercial area that's around like 13 and Mass Ave, something like that would be something we could all agree on. That's for retail. Now for growing, do you want to, I think what I heard you guys say for growing was, we're okay with growing in any industrial.
Yeah, which is, again, is the hard part, is it's all the way down on Leominster Shirley Road. But I feel like the security is different at industrial than retail, so I'd feel okay with it.
There's not customer security
Yeah.
issues, yeah. There's,
Which is not good because of the lack of security, wouldn't you say, in commercial areas?
what's that?
are you guys thinking that there's more security in commercial areas or less?
No, I'm thinking there's more security in a grow facility than a retail facility.
Oh. there
Because
should
you don't
be
have
that.
people going in and out all day. They're in the facility, they're locked up.
Plus, they're required to have the security that the dispensaries, I mean,
They're required to have a certain amount of security. I guess, what's, for me anyways, it's, you know, with a retail facility, you have people, the public coming in and out to transact their business. They're bringing money in and out. Whereas a grow facility, yes, you have product, you don't have cash flow, and you don't have the public, you know, obviously the people who work there matter too, but I think it's a
It's
lower
not the
risk
same
overall.
level.
I don't think it's the same, I mean, it's a little bit different situation.
So I guess I was just saying that's why I would support that being an industrial.
In industrial, yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
And
So
Yeah, industrial, commercial, and I think I would even support, you know, farms that were in residence areas as long as they met, you know, certain
The residential
desi-
setbacks.
certain setbacks and restrictions that we would craft to protect the neighboring residents, especially the abutters and whatnot.
Yeah. I guess as it's a lot, I guess it's a big security thing and a screening thing, but if you want to try to tackle that, I guess we can try to tackle that.
What are your thoughts, Matt?
what if somebody comes and proposes a combined growing and just retail? They're going to be restricted to the,
I'd say we can separate them, right?
So so here's the thing. So based on what, if we're going with kind of the direction we've been talking about here, we basically, what we said was, we think we agree retail, kind of like in the commercial, the center commercial kind of, the centrally located commercial, okay? That's where we've said is good for retail. And we're basically, where we're headed with grow is grow almost anywhere. So if they came and proposed a combined, they'd have to meet the strictest requirements, which would be,
well, I guess
The
I'm
retail.
getting at, what if they come and they propose a retail and then sometime down the line, they propose to expand to also growth?
Yeah, we're
In
saying you can grow where you already have retail, right?
yeah, because we're saying, basically, we're saying you can grow anywhere as long as you meet, you know,
Okay.
certain guidelines. How does that work for you?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Awesome. This is great progress then. Let's, this will help Marjorie capture that in the notes. Can we move on to the next question? I don't mean to.
Yes, no, well, because you're writing them down, so go ahead.
Okay, method of zoning. I think, options were add uses to existing districts, add an overlay, or create a new district. Just for the purpose of expediency, just to kind of frame the discussion, if we want to do what we talked about with the center commercial, I mean, we could create a new district there. It's probably more expedient just to create an overlay that applies to the area we're talking about. But for the retail aspect, what we talked about on the growing side, we would probably do, that would probably be done differently. I would think that would just be a use that would get added in with references to the restrictions on, the requirements it had to meet.
I would still would want to hear more about what these grow facilities are looking like, because you still don't want a warehouse popping up in the residential neighborhood, right?
That's a good
Saying
point.
that's allowed anywhere.
Well, yeah, that's a great
With the
point.
big greenhouses and,
Maybe we could limit the square footage, that might be a way to do it.
That's a great point. I mean, I was thinking only qualified farms in residential areas. That would be like, what if farms got to be a minimum of
It'd be
4
5
acres,
acres.
5 acres, yeah. And then we could put slap some design bylaw stuff on it. I don't know how much power we have because of the farm, stuff, but
That's another example of the state regulations changing and the town bylaws not keeping up. Is the state regulation now is 2.5 acres with, some supplemented requirements on income, but the town bylaw still says 5 acres.
interesting.
Anyways,
yeah,
That's a good
another-
point.
Let's change that.
Okay, so, I mean, but the question really is, how do we, I don't know I think I'd have to, unless you guys know the answer for sure, I think we'd have to talk to Joel, but it doesn't smell like overlay to me. It smells like, this use has these requirements. because a farm can basically be anywhere in town. We're saying it's okay in commercial, okay in industrial,
You're talking just to grow, right?
to grow. Yeah, just the grow piece.
I've got a general question. It's related to this, of course. The suggestion was to use the marina, right? Right in front of the police station, right? Now, if we were to zone the marina, how would that work? I mean, the marina is a privately owned piece of land, right? And a privately owned business.
Well, yeah.
And if we zoned just that small area, then that would indicate to me that somebody that wanted to come in here and do one of these things would have to buy that property.
Well, the same thing goes with, say, adult entertainment, right? The state went around and said we had to zone that, and I believe our adult entertainment district is across from Emerald Place, the commercial area that hasn't been developed, right? If I remember from looking at the zoning map back in the day. But yeah, it's pretty much one specific parcel.
So
So
How
that's
does
not
that
very
work?
tenable. Actually, that can be challenged as an undue burden and undue restriction. So if someone really wanted to come in with, if we could put an overlay district on the marina and say, yes, this is our marijuana retail district. It's the marina in front of the police station.
all right, to follow up on my
Well,
question.
and really, if we're, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We've talked about, requests for proposals, developing town land. Well, why don't we just set aside a piece of town land that is not being used, that it's in a good spot, in our opinion, and say that if the medical marijuana facility wants to come to this town, then they can use this spot on town land, and it will be developed.
Essentially, I mean, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, I don't think, our goal, in my opinion, our goal is to enable a firm to come into town in a manner that is, that addresses, provides the legitimate needs of residents with the services they offer, and doesn't create undue public hazards or safety problems. I think an approach where we really tightly limit where they can come in is unnecessarily restrictive and isn't in the interests, doesn't meet those public interests that we've heard about from members of the public. That's the problem with that. And in fact, if we restrict it too much, then we're not going to effectively control anything, because they're going to come in, they're going to say, this town bylaws are built to keep us out, and therefore we're going to put it here, and the state's going to say, you're right, put it there.
And like we were talking about before, with the spirit of what we're trying to do here, we saw the town's concern that they want people to have access to this, so we're just trying to find the right place to put it and not be overly restrictive. I think saying the marina was more of a joke last time, because that would be ridiculously restrictive, but.
That was
convenient
one
for
of
the
my
police.
serious suggestions.
Well,
Would be very safe.
it would be
Give you
very
that.
safe, yes.
You got a point there, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, like Nathan just said, you can be too restrictive and then that hurts you too. So unrealistically,
I don't see, I guess I just don't see the drawback. I mean, it's required to be here, and if we allow a spot for it, I don't see what.
because like we just said, the town wants us to make this
Well, that's what I was gonna
feasible. That would kind of make it unfeasible, right? Like you said, you have to buy that specific piece of property.
What I was saying, if it was town land, that it was made available for, okay, next topic,
Well, yeah, because I think we've all decided we're not going to say one piece of parcel is where this can happen.
okay.
And Nathan, that was his opening statement where he said town meeting said they want this.
They want it feasible. They want it feasible and they want it safe. That's what I got at town meeting. So that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so Matthew, I mean, so it's okay. I mean, it sounds like at least the three of us agree on that. Sounds like you might have a different perspective. What are your goals that you would be trying to achieve by putting it on that?
Well, I mean, it's still a very, very, very small percentage of a likelihood, even a chance that somebody's going to look at Lunenburg for the location. I mean, they've already formalized one in Air, which is very close.
So what's your goal by? So okay, so that would suggest that.
I'm still reluctant that it's a federal crime. I'm still reluctant. I mean, if honestly.
Okay. I mean, you're entitled to that opinion. I mean, you're responsible for, your voice in the planning process. I mean, I feel like I gotta listen to
I feel much better about it, definitely.
what's that?
I feel much better about it after the meetings and the memos that have been distributed by the Department of Justice and all
Department of
that.
Justice,
but
okay, gotcha.
It's still law's a law.
So I guess just to sum up here, I think what I'm hearing is that we, Matt's got some legitimate reservations. It sounds like we at least had on a majority here. You know, I think it sounds like we basically think it would be appropriate to do the retailing in that sort of center commercial type situation, using an overlay, and that we need to figure out, in that for growing, we're more or less on board with all the districts, but we got to get some restrictions especially around residents, but, you know, some
Setbacks and
setbacks and that
requirements,
sort of
yep,
thing. Yep.
absolutely.
And maybe some design stuff to deal with some of the,
Yeah, square footage of it.
Okay, and is it,
so that's good. So that takes care of method of zoning.
yeah, so now we're on special permit by right
Yep, we're on special permit by right.
Say we're doing
or
special
by
permit.
right? I am for the special permit. I can't speak for you guys. I think it gives us more control. I think it's a case-by-case situation that we have the right to look at. And that's where my thought process is.
I would agree.
I don't think it's as much control about it, but we can specify who, and we can specify every department in town gets to review it. You know, it's not so much, it's more eyes on it, right?
Gotcha. So, yeah, I understand where you guys are coming from on that, and this will be my turn to be the minority. And I'm not even sure, you might be able to easily swing me on this one. I guess I'm still entertaining, in my mind, it's pretty tightly regulated. We have the opportunity to further regulate it. I think we definitely need to require site plan review. It's like a non-issue. But given the sentiment in town, and, you know, I could see a case for by right. The main argument for by right is it is a more enticing business environment to invite this type of operation into the community. That doesn't mean I don't want to regulate it. I don't want to, you know, put whatever conditions we want on top of the state law. But at the end of the day, if someone was interested in opening such a business in Lunenburg, they could be confident that they could acquire a certain parcel. They know our regulations, and they know they could get the facilities set up. And in fact, based on, I don't know if that state law changed, but the draft we read, I don't understand how special permit's compatible with it. Because it's a little chicken or egg thing, because they're required, when they apply to the state, to prove that they can operate in the town for 5 years. Which would, and then when they come to us, they need approval from the state. So if it's special permit, you know, they can't really come to us till they have state approval to get the special permit, and they can't get approval from the state that they can, with certainty, do business here for 5 years until they have the special permit. So that's something I'd like to ask Joel about, is how does
Yeah,
that
because
work
Joel
out?
did talk about that, because in the Hill one, there's, they recommended special permit.
Yeah,
So there's legally a way that it can be done, because they're saying that that's what their recommendation was. So Joel could answer it in black and white, but there is definitely a way for that to happen.
cool. Yeah, no, I'd like to hear, I think you're probably right. I'd like to hear how Joel explains that. Beyond the legal aspect, it's just a question of the sentiment I heard at town meeting. Now, assuming the people left in that town meeting were representative, you know, for a lot of very good personal reasons, dealing with serious health issues and the ability of people to access health care that was best for them, they want no undue, what I heard was people did not want to see any undue restrictions on this type of beneficial business opening up in the community. And that would, we can get feedback. I suspect that if those people were here tonight, or when we do a public hearing about this, we might get some, so I'm okay with keeping a special permit or a by right alive. I think we got to be prepared for feedback. That I wouldn't be surprised if we got a strong voice in public opinion for a by right process. But, you know, like I said, I think I respect what you guys are saying. There's a lot of advantages to special permit from a planning standpoint.
Well, given it by special permit,
Sure.
that gives
Go ahead.
gives the neighbors a platform to come here and voice their complaints too, right?
Absolutely.
So Because that would give people a more secure feeling, I think, and people want this in town, but they want it done in a safe way too, and I don't think they want it to be ambiguous, so I don't feel special permit is really that hard on someone applying for this. And it would give abutters to the commercial districts a safe feeling, I think, too.
That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, because site plan review, you always have to have a public hearing as well. So we usually do one public hearing, but even with the special permit, and I do the sawmill. And I think we encompassed a lot of, in the special permit, residents' feedback.
Yep.
With the hours, and that's part of where I say we have more control, because it's in Nathan's neighborhood, that's more residential, it's more quiet, you can work 7 to 3, you could do this, you can't have the spotlight, heat lights on at such and such a time. That's where I was looking at the special permit, where you just have the site plan, these are the rules.
Right, and if your site plan's got enough rules in it, maybe if your bylaws have enough rules in it in advance, maybe you're okay, but you're right. I mean, the special permit, the advantage is if you don't have to necessarily think of everything up front. If you forgot something, you can address resident concerns right there in the special permitting process. The disadvantage, some may say, is that, if there's a business that's looking at expanding in this region, they're looking at, I don't know, Lunenburg or Pepperell or whatever, and they're saying, oh, I don't know what Pepperell's laws are, but they say, oh, in Pepperell, it's a by right, and I know that if I meet A, B, and C, I can open my doors in 18 months or 12 months or whatever. Whereas in Lunenburg, I gotta go through the special permit process, and God knows what my business is gonna look like when I get out of that process.
Yeah.
Well, we already do that to our regular businesses in town. If you look at the limited business district, almost everything's gonna come in for a special permit.
Well, right, and I mean, that's something the state's encouraging towns to look at, is to embrace expedited permitting for more and more.
Yeah, and I would agree to opening that up. I'm just saying that we do that to normal businesses. We impede normal businesses, and you want to make it easy for marijuana distribution.
Make it not easier than it is to open a restaurant?
Yeah. That's my only point there. Is don't make it easier than opening a restaurant.
Right, and I think based on, I don't, we can have a mindset that we want to move these along and work with the people, or no, we want to make it hard. And I don't think any of us want to sit here and make anything for
I think that's
anybody
where the special
in
permit
Lunenburg
comes in,
hard.
because you can take it by case basis, and you don't need to write out a Bible of setbacks and all that stuff. So you can be looser with your design guidelines, and so I think it's more open in that way.
That's a good point. And given our track record of getting bylaws perfect the first time, that it definitely puts it in a more comfortable situation. Well, this is good. I think we can talk about this more, but I think this is a great conversation. We've had it on TV, and this is a great thing for people, if they care about this issue, when we do have a public hearing
To come,
and
exactly.
give
Well,
some
and I think
feedback.
Toby, with his years of experience.
He's gonna have some input.
We'll have some input. I think it'll be great for Marjorie to kind of capture this, and it's, some really good data that we'll be able to start to move forward on.
Awesome.
Can I suggest that we make another citizen survey for these questions that we've asked ourselves?
So I think that's possibly a good idea. I would suggest, these very questions here. I'm not trying to use, stalling tactics here. I think I would suggest let's maybe get a little more clarity around some of the questions we have around our questions.
Definitely.
And kind of nail down really, like, we asked some good questions, and from this discussion we learned what are the things we need to really understand about, the legal framework or this or that. Let's get some answers to those things, so that the questions we pose to the public are, do you like this possible thing or this possible thing, as opposed to, these 3 things we're not sure about yet.
Rather than
I'm not sure we
open-ended
have-
questions.
Yeah. I'm not sure we have a lot of time for the citizen survey either. We left the other one out for, 4 months, and we get 200 people responded.
Well, we might, I think that wasn't bad to respond. 400 people responded.
No, 200, I think it was.
That's not terrible, but I think, we can just, I don't think the survey is gonna be like a binding vote, but it might be a fine
just saying we're
experiment
running
to
out of
float,
time.
float it for, no, I agree, but if we float it for a week, we announce the public hearing, we'll get what we get and just, see, it can't hurt, I
They
guess.
can come talk in person rather than,
I think the public hearing's more influential ultimately,
Than a
but yeah,
survey, yeah,
than a
that's what I'm
survey.
saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've already had a public hearing on it.
that
and
was.
I don't think anybody
that wasn't
showed
really
up.
on the whole thing, that was just on the delay.
The moratorium,
The moratorium.
yeah. And that was, it was late.
It wasn't really well advertised either.
Yeah, it was put in very quickly, so.
But yeah, I think we should consider it. I would propose, let's keep that live option. I suggest we revisit that when when do you think we might be, so what do we need to do to,
To have
first
a
of all,
public
this
hearing?
is a big step. This is a great meeting, I think, the fact that we kind of got some answers, some specific questions. Is the next step to, it would have been great if Toby was here, but I understand he's busy. Is the next step to get a meeting together with Joel with us so that we can kind of,
We
in
can
a mo-
request that, we can request a meeting or even a conference call with Joel.
Sure.
We could do a conference call.
Not at a meeting, we can't.
I'm sorry?
We haven't done the, what is that, remote? There's an MGL we'd have to accept at town meeting to.
We already did that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We could do remote access.
sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
all
Good.
boards approved that, yep. But Joel, where it's attorney, we could do work, it's just a conference call and we ask him questions. We've done that a couple times. Or we could see when he's coming out here again.
Well, I think we gotta do this soon, because
Yeah,
I feel
we
like.
can- we
and
can-
We have to get this ready for
May.
town meeting in May,
Mm-hmm.
so we should be having public hearings by March.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, well, that's, I was,
We really gotta whittle this down quick to something we can present on a platform where we can have a public.
Absolutely. So why don't we put together an email in appraising Joel of our discussion tonight? If you want, I can put together a draft, or,
well, Marjorie
Marjorie's
can,
gonna do it?
yeah,
Okay,
Marjorie
that's
can
great.
pull out exactly what questions we had for Joel.
If we could review that before she sends it to him, just to make sure, because this is a long discussion, just
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to make sure that.
And if you're all thinking of it, if you have any specific questions, email them to Marjorie. Add this to your questions for Joel.
Can we realistically get those by next meeting?
Well, we could try to, yes. I will, if you guys email her your questions, she'll pull the questions, because she'll have these minutes done by the end of the week.
Yeah.
So she will definitely do that. But if you have specific questions on top of here, email them to Marjorie, and I will ask her to email us the list
She's got an-
before she sends it to Joel.
She's got an increased workload lately, doesn't she?
I talk to Marjorie every day, because Carrie and I have been in contact quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and I call Marjorie, I spend about a half hour, 45 minutes with Marjorie every day, so,
So maybe, so we do need some questions answered, and we can, Marjorie can put together a draft of these minutes.
Yes.
And then we can add whatever questions might be missing from
Mm-hmm.
that. I think if we're gonna get it ready in that time frame, we might need to see if we can get Koppelman and Page to put together the draft of this bylaw for us based on the parameters we're giving them. Or at least a skeleton of it. And then, I don't know how quickly they could do that, but,
well, I don't think they'd write our bylaw. We have to write the bylaw. They would approve it, they would add it, amend it, give us coaching tips, what they feel
okay.
would be in there.
Okay, so I guess then, based on our conversation, we need to ask Marjorie to start with one of these more skeletal kind of, this is gonna be really tough. We're gonna have to work pretty quick, because,
Yes.
especially to get, the thing that's gonna take the time is the specific, like, the dimensional requirements and all that stuff, and the places where we want exceptions to the state law. So we need to get the latest state law as quickly as possible.
Yeah, well, I can have her email us that tomorrow.
Okay, that's great. And then, so I guess it probably makes sense for her to start, have her start on a skeleton, and if she has to, of our bylaw, based on this feedback, these questions that we've talked about tonight, Joanna?
Yeah, I'm writing this for her. Yeah,
Great.
I'm writing
And
what
the-
you're saying.
And then we can, so get us the latest mass bylaw, have her start putting together, a draft of our bylaw based on this information. And I think the biggest thing there is, the first question is, we decided to reference rather than repeat. So that's she needs to find a good example probably to work from. And then thirdly is the thing about Koppelman Page, and we, you know, if she can go through the minutes and get what she has, and there, I don't know, do we want her to call out the questions for Koppelman Page from the meeting, or do we want to review and give those to her, or a little bit of both? She comes up with what she thinks our questions are, and then we augment
Yes,
them.
and I would, Marjorie, please add this to the list, and, we'll try to get that out by Thursday. Put a time frame of trying to get that to Joel by Thursday. And so you're all aware, these are our next meeting dates, but we can have workshops on this every other day if we want.
Oh, okay.
We can
Yeah.
have a workshop to finish this. We could do a public hearing. It doesn't have to be on Monday,
Yep.
one of our planning board nights. We can have a public hearing whenever. So don't think that we're attached to only the next 4 planning board meetings, and, because remember how many meetings we had on solar?
Okay.
Should we set a soft deadline for when we're gonna start having public hearings, so we know we gotta get this wrapped up? Because, I mean,
Trying to
When
think.
in May is that town meeting?
15, I think, 17?
it's early and middle to early.
Oh, 17.
And when's the warrant close?
I'm looking at, because I got an email from someone, I think it was Marjorie, when the warrant closes. So it's going to give you the date of when
Awesome, yeah.
the warrant closes.
Oh, I only
Goes to
have,
show there's a reason we were asking for a moratorium, because there's not enough time.
oh, that was the caucus I was thinking of.
I guess we just gotta do our job.
I guess so.
I hate that. I'm just kidding.
Too bad we don't get paid for it.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That's okay. We love doing it, right?
That's right, that's right.
I can't find it, of course.
Are you on a, you're on a, who's on a 1 year, are you guys both on a 1 year term?
I'm on the one.
He's got the one.
He's got the 5.
You got the 5?
He's locked in.
I think I'm effectively, I think ours probably wind up roughly the same time then.
Well, the list of the caucus was only one planning member position.
Next year.
Yeah,
Oh, who's that, Toby this year?
Matt.
me.
Oh, in May?
At the March 13th, well, yeah,
We have the caucus in May.
yeah, caucus
Or-
in March.
In March, so
March
he can
for
get
May.
on the
Oh, wow.
election.
Okay, gotcha, wow.
I don't have to get back on it, do I, since I'm the incumbent?
I think you still have to go to the caucus, right?
I don't have to get nominated or get the,
I wouldn't assume that.
Yeah, you have to
do,
get
yeah, you have to get
nominated.
nominated.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not automatic. You have to go and, someone has to nominate you, and you have
Oh.
to say, yes, I accept
okay.
the position. You have to run. If there's someone that runs against you, you've got a campaign run, do whatever you've got to do.
Essentially announcing your interest is by going there.
I'll nominate you if you go to the thing.
I don't think you were there last year.
Huh?
Were you there last year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I made a mistake last year.
You know what, actually, I didn't know you last year.
Yeah, I can't find it, but I don't think it's till April that the warrant closes.
Well, that's
The
pretty early.
meeting's not till May.
So we need to start our public hearings like in the, let's say by the second week of March, if we need to hit an April deadline
Yep.
for, okay.
Yeah, that's why I kept saying we gotta,
Okay, no, absolutely,
gotta-
that's good. So I think that's good. So you said by Thursday,
we'll get our list to Joel.
Or
That'll
list to
be our
Joel.
goal, is to get that list of questions to Joel. I can ask Joel to come out, I can ask him to, come on a conference call.
coming out, if it's not a lot more expensive, it'd be
Right.
awesome. And when are we gonna have, it'd be great if maybe we have our draft bylaw ready when he comes out too, right? So we get him a list
Right.
of questions and,
Right, I think we need to start getting stuff on paper before Joel can really,
okay. And when do you think Marjorie might have a first draft? I know it's a lot of work. I know she's busy.
no, we'll shoot for February 24th.
That's our next meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we'll
Joel
shoot.
wouldn't be coming to, would Joel be, so the 24th might be possible. Get Joel there, get our first piece of paper, our first draft there. Is that what we're looking at?
I can ask Joel to come on the 24th, yes. If that's what the board requests, I can ask him. I just don't want Joel to come here with a lot of
Yeah, let's hold off.
uncertainty.
Yeah, let's get our questions.
I want to have specific data, this is what we're looking at, what do you think, versus kind of just if we're going to have just a conversation, I think a conference call
Yeah,
would be
okay.
more beneficial.
That makes sense. So let's just, let's,
So what are you gonna tell Marjorie to draft off of? Is there an example here that we're gonna give her, one of the shorter ones, or? 'Cause I feel like we're giving her kind of ambiguous task right now.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my marijuana stuff, but I like the town of Concord had a nice one.
Well, theirs is, yeah, that's true. I don't know that the town of Concord's, did we get their bylaw or just their presentation?
I don't remember seeing it from Concord.
They have a PowerPoint, which is in here
Somewhere.
somewhere. Sorry. It's not that. It's not that. Oh, here it is. Passed it, make, oh, okay, Article 29. Yeah, I guess it is a, how did we get here? Overview, zoning map, overview. Article 39, yeah, it's right here in the PowerPoint. Yeah, let's use,
That's all. Yep.
yeah.
So that's the definition, right?
Yeah, so they basically just assume the state law, they
They-
add it as a use in the overlay district.
Set
Which is
the setbacks
exactly
in
everything we were
schools.
talking
And they
about.
say
And
site
Say
plan
where it's
approval.
allowed, yeah.
Huh?
Site plan approval by the planning board is required, and then they say what's districts.
Okay.
Yeah, because based on the conversation we had tonight, she can answer those questions if she uses this as an example.
Right, I liked the town of Concord, I don't want to speak
Okay.
for all of you, but I thought, and everything we talked about tonight is kind of what they were addressing.
I think it's a good starting point to give her a
And then we can add,
directive.
delete, right. But I think if we start getting something on paper that we're making notes on and sending back,
Can we find something that in town, they don't require a special permit, so if we're gonna add special permit so there's a couple wrinkles here. One is that we almost need double the town of Concord, because we almost got like two of these. We got one for retailing and one for growing. So I would make a note of that, because she's gonna basically need like twice the stuff, because there's two. And the other thing I would mention is, this one here. The other thing is, maybe we need an example of some of our bylaws that require a special permit for some use, because there may be language there that she needs to pull in
pull
as
in there.
well.
Yep,
Yeah, this just says treatment center, it doesn't even address growing, I don't know if they differentiate.
They don't differentiate, but we're proposing to
Yeah, we're
differentiate.
proposing to, okay.
That's another thing we should get clarity on is words, definitions, meanings, treatment center versus dispensary versus facility.
Yeah, and that might be the state has in their state code, they have a sort of a gloss or whatever. They break down all the definitions in the state law.
Oh, they're also creating their own district too.
Well, which we're talking about doing we're talking about,
Yeah, an
is it an overlay they're
No,
creating?
uh,
Are they creating they're creating a
No,
separate
it's got
district.
Emerson
Oh, okay,
They
that's
got
not what we're
hospitals
planning to
already
do.
there.
So, yeah, actually, that's another thing, Joanne. So the only
Yeah.
thing with Concord is they're creating a special district, we're creating an overlay.
right.
that's kind of close.
So she probably needs to reference an example where we create an overlay. I don't, overlay, special permit.
Yep.
And we need times two.
Yep.
And one of them's might be not an overlay. One of them is something else that we need to ask Joel about. We need to ask Joel basically for the grow piece. What's the best way to achieve this goal? Because I have no idea. I think we got to add it as a use to all those districts and then define the restrictions.
Okay. Sounds good?
Good place to start, yeah.
Great. Very productive meeting, Joanne. Thank you.
No, thank you guys. Thank you. All right, so we'll go off of that for now to put back on the agenda for the February 24th meeting, and hopefully we'll have a draft bylaw written, and we'll have some questions from Joel Bard answered. Next, we have action file citizen survey, no report. Our next scheduled meeting is February 24th at the Ritter Memorial Building at 6:30. March 10th at the Town Hall, March 24th at the Ritter. Any public comment? Seeing none, any board comment?
Yeah, the subdivision rules and regulations chapter per meeting.
I would just like to say I don't think that was, I think that was proposed with good intentions. I think realistically, that's just not happening. Let's strike that from our goals, because it's just so not happening.
But I thought that was in our mission and goals.
It is, and we'll talk about that.
All right, how can we get more time together? After going to that open meeting law in the library last week, it seems like we're not obligated, we're not allowed to talk about anything that goes on in this meeting anytime aside from this meeting. Twice a week, twice a month. So we spend 4 to 6 hours a month talking about all these hugely important things. I honestly don't think we have nearly enough time to fully deliberate anything, honestly.
As far as, not so much people coming to talk to us, but our special projects, I think. So I don't know if we need, I don't know if everyone wants to sign up for an extra meeting every month to have a special topics meeting, I guess. I don't know what you would call it, but.
Or maybe a workshop every month.
Yeah, and I think we tried this before, so my recommendation would be, I mean, the problem is lack of time. There's two things. One is, do we have enough time? And the other thing is in our meeting time. And the second is, do we run a disciplined enough agenda? I think we're making progress. I think Joanna's, doing a good job, and as a team, we're making we've made it a priority to get more disciplined about our proactive stuff. It's clearly not as good as we want it to be, but I think we're making progress there. I think to make more progress, I think you're right, we probably would need to meet more often. What we did before was we added a planning meeting once a month. That tended to get canceled a lot. I think my opinion would be, what would probably work better is just say we're gonna meet if we want to go that road, this is a big commitment, say we're gonna meet every week and still have it be a mixed agenda, but just work to motor through, time box stuff, so that a portion of that agenda is going to be the regular business and a portion.
My thought on that would be that if we're going to schedule more meetings, then the additional meetings that we schedule as a board, we elect to meet together, then we should focus on the town itself, and that's it. I don't think we should hear any subdivisions.
Like any extra meeting should be more of a workshop.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand I agree with the spirit of that. The issue is that I don't know, maybe we can be different now, maybe we've grown, but in the past, those meetings we don't have to meet. Well, I can't meet this week. They're more likely to get canceled.
Well, I guess there's a third qualifier then, is interest.
I would be there.
I would be there as well.
That's, yeah, I mean, look, weekly meeting. Yeah,
It's just something I wanted to get out there and
No,
have people
it's good.
thinking about, because I really honestly don't think we spend nearly enough time on a lot of issues.
I'm willing to take on a weekly meeting if Joanna is.
I'm not right now. I will be. And I think it's something that, we have a lot going on, the director's out, so it's hard. And just time right now is tough.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, it's a big commitment.
Well, we really only would need 3 out of 5, right?
Yeah, but you really want 5 out of 5 especially in the chairman. So how about this? I'm with you in spirit. I think, Joanne's
Yep.
with you in spirit. I think if your schedule lightens up, we will.
Yeah, let's table this just till next month, and then we'll see everybody's calendar and figure out how we can make more time.
Another thing we
to do
can,
that.
another thing we can do in the meantime is kind of like we had a very I feel like tonight was good. We had a productive discussion. We moved the ball forward on something. One way to grow the meetings is to add more meetings. The other way is to
Be more productive in the meetings.
be more productive, and the other way is to add more time to the meetings.
Right.
We could say, we're going to add whatever our agenda is, we're going to meet up until 10, and we're going to try to have, like we've been talking for like over an hour about this. We can try to set aside, hour and a half at the end of the meeting for policy.
We were lucky today where we didn't have a lot of topics, so
Right.
that's why we got this done. But we've talked later than this just on appointments.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true. But I think, if we go till, if we say we're willing to stay till 10 and bite the bullet, because we're not going to meet every week, I think we can probably, you'd be surprised, we can probably.
Yeah, we
it's a-
can come in at 5:30, we could stay till 10, there's a multitude of things we can do.
There is an alternative I've come up with.
Okay,
The open meeting law also opened my eyes to the fact that if there is email correspondence and it is published in the minutes, then it is open, it is public knowledge, and it is not a violation.
seriously?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Uh,
If it sounds like that to Joel, great, I'm cool with it.
I would love to have confirmation on that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Joel did the training,
if
and
we had-
I thought that Joel was very, very, very adamant on
he
no
was.
emailing.
He was. It makes his job
Unless
easier.
it was strictly about your scheduling, and do not reply to all, never, ever, ever, ever reply to all.
Okay, that sounds different than what you're saying.
But it was the public record that was the thing, and there were some email communications that were set right by having the email communications published in the minutes. So my thought,
No, I thought that was a lawsuit, and they had to end up publishing the emails in the minutes.
perhaps it was. Perhaps
Yeah, I
I'm-
think that's what it was, is that people were emailing, the emails got subpoenaed in court, and they had to
there
then.
was a case like that,
So that
yes,
was
there
the
was, but I don't
recourse,
think
so
that's.
that was like
Yeah,
the
I don't
penalty
know,
that wasn't,
but,
processed.
yeah, and again, we can,
Talk about it at another meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
yeah.
But let's, I mean, Joanna, so what are the policy things we have? Obviously, medical marijuana, there's the town center.
The village district, which will be coming in front of us again, because we got pre-approved, so they'll still be working on that.
And our 2002 subdivision.
And right now, we want to get this done for the May meeting.
Yep. This, obviously, yeah.
So
this-
I think this now is our footprint, and we'll be having more meetings on this than just the ones we have scheduled, because you're not going to be able to fit it all in that window, on top of everything else. So you're already going to be adding the next 2 months more workshops around this to get that done for town meeting.
So,
And, well, we're talking about topics, things we need to address. I think we need to do, like we were talking about before, how difficult it is, special permit-wise, to open a business in like the limited business district.
sure.
Because especially when you're getting funding from a bank to do a project, they want you to see that you have the right to do it as of right,
Sure.
and they don't really want to get involved monetarily with something that's to go through special permit. So, talking about ease of access to things in town, maybe looking at how we do special permitting all over the place might be.
So what's our, so let's talk about from now until town meeting. Let's say
Yeah,
we're.
that's after the fact.
Oh, you think it's after? Okay, that's right. So I think that's a great goal, and that's, let's just, for all the extra time we can squeeze out between now and town meeting, it sounds like this is gonna take up a big
Sound like it's
chunk of
gonna be
it.
the marijuana bylaw.
Are we gonna try to squeeze in any village center stuff?
There's no way we're gonna get village done by then.
So
'Cause
it's,
that, I think that warrants its own public hearings in its own right.
it's good, yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, it will.
So should we just, it sounds like let's focus on getting this, the question is, can we efficiently utilize all our time finishing this off with whatever that let's say we have an hour and a half of policy time at every meeting between now and May 15th, or whatever, now and April. Is this, will this efficiently occupy all our policy time?
I'm pretty sure, I think this is gonna,
We could do all of it on just the medical marijuana, I'm sure.
Okay.
Just so that we could get a very good bylaw rather than one that needs to be revised next year.
Okay. If any of you have, Damon, you mentioned you were working on the village center stuff. If we need a backup in case we get bottlenecked on this,
yeah.
it'd be nice.
Bring whatever.
Or if you want to work on the, improving, our permitting for commercial district, keep that in your back pocket.
Mhm.
But it sounds like this is our main thing. Joanna's going to schedule the extra time in the meetings. We'll expecting to focus on this. If we get bottlenecked on this, we'll pull one of those things out of your pocket. And
All right.
we'll
Sure.
do that.
Okay, so any other members' issues? All right, Marion's not here, so I would ascertain a motion to adjourn, not to return.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah.